I think AI is awesome. I think any company who's kind of just ignoring it and like not messing around, not playing with it, hasn't subscribed to, hasn't checked out ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, like you're losing out.
I'm missing out on all the fun.
You definitely need to play around with it. But for certain use cases, right? Not for everything else. I'm seeing brilliant use cases for AI in terms of like process stuff. So, summarizing, digesting data, maybe analyzing themes. Even when it comes to like copy, I guess on the brainstorming stuff, like rewriting ideas or maybe bringing that into your process to like get over that blank page. But I think what's really key and the thing that I kind of riles me up the wrong way about these conversations about AI is that like AI cannot think for you. You can't it can't come up with like this awesome brand new idea. It can't form opinions. It doesn't have the insight into your industry, your customers, your prospects that you do. And if we think about messaging strategy, most of the companies that are coming to me have a problem with really expressing like their differentiation or being persuasive, demonstrating the value of like why anybody should choose them over a competitor, right? That's really what we're trying to do here. It's like, how do we articulate this really simply and clearly? Why would you want to use an AI engine that is basically like filled with all this like generic data out there to like fuel your unique messaging strategy? It doesn't make any sense. So definitely there's use cases, but you really need to feed AI with so much that when it comes to actually creating something, like I think it takes so much longer to pump out something that's like absolutely nowhere near as good as what human insight can do. So yeah, I will stick to using AI in terms of like speeding up the process stuff, speeding up the kind of maybe the manual processes. But if it comes to actually like content creation, there's so much prompting that needs to be done. That I don't know how many companies are really like doing that. Like whenever I use AI in terms of like brainstorming, I'm like putting in 4, 5, 6 prompts before I'm even asking it to do a task or write something for me. I'm always saying, hey, this is your role. I'm giving all of this. This is like the transcript. This is all the data. Have you processed that? This is the context of the industry. And then I'm like, okay, cool. Now produce this. And then it does it. I'm like, okay, that was crap anyway. Oh my God, I've still got so much to do. Like, honestly, I spent like 8 hours last week just building out one prompt. So there's definitely great use cases, definitely played with it. But look, think about this more from a process aspect and remember that this work of, messaging, like it all comes down to knowing your customer. AI can't know your customer. You've got to feed it with so much. So just do the work up front to kind of figure it out. Yeah.
AI reminds me, and I am in the content world, so I get the content piece, but AI reminds me a lot of like Jekyll and Hyde, or maybe Banner and Hulk, if you will, like the dual personalities, right? And it brings me back to those dreaded buzzwords. Like AI is so good at helping me brainstorm if I just have like writer's block and I don't know where to start, because sometimes it will produce something and I'm like, okay, well, at least now I know what I want to do, because it's like, no, I wouldn't do this. I, pick this apart, and it gets you thinking about what good content is by kind of seeing what the bad is, or, to your point about process, sometimes it'll give you a good structure, but it's just full of all those buzzwords, and it's just taking what everybody else is saying and spitting it out. And so it gives you a good foundation, a process, bones sometimes, if you will.
I think right now, one of the trickiest areas is in human resources. I think there's a couple reasons for that. I mean, I think it's always been the case that this is tricky in the sense of, there's these issues of, do you keep the star player on your team who gets results? even if you become aware that they use bullying behavior or demean other people in the workplace. That's a kind of a classic, if you will. But I think the other reason that human resources is going to provide the greatest challenge moving forward is because of the impact of technology. As we're bringing new technologies on that are fundamentally changing the ways that people work, we have to revisit our commitments to the workforce. And we have to really think about the workforce well-being in a workplace that's going to be integrated with AI, for example, and how that's changing people's sense of meaning and purpose, and how we keep that alive in work for them. So I think that in the past, we've seen a very traditional path to the top of a corporate ladder would be, you have to have experience in sales, or the revenue generating part of the organization. I think in the future, we might see more people find their way to the corner office by having experience in people management and human resources and having been effective in that role. And I just will say that the development of responsible technology is another tricky area. How companies are actually bringing that technology online, how they're setting principles, how they're thinking about the potential harms of those technologies, I think is a big issue in society right now. Would we all feel as great about social media if we had understood at the beginning the impact it was going to have on young people and their mental health, for example? So, we're identifying a lot of ethical concerns in AI, the bias in the systems, the fact that it's using copyrighted material, the negative impact it's having on the environment, and yet we're forging ahead with it. And so how companies are doing that and thinking about that, I think, is really important too. And I think that the environment is actually a place in the business world where there are only gray areas. All these companies are making these commitments to, zero carbon footprint and reaching certain goals by certain milestone years. And yet, so talk about balancing the short term and the long term, right? They're under pressure to hit certain metrics in the short term and that the market is going to reward. But they also know the climate change is real and, our long-term survivability depends on taking that longer time horizon and making those decisions. So I think that's another area that's particularly challenging for business leaders right now.
We have a lot of great freelancers or contractors that help us too. So even if there's not someone on the team, is there a cost-effective contractor that you can hire? Can you outsource to some of these incredible new AI tools? Can you set up Zapier automations? Technology is ever growing and available to us. And so there's a lot of ways we can kind of think outside of those boxes.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of times when I work with solopreneurs that are maybe ready to hire somebody or a couple of people, we always work through, it doesn't mean full-time employee. It could be a vendor, a tool, a contractor, part-time, seasonal, whatever it looks like. And that's why I think doing the time audit is really helpful, because if you find yourself spending 2 hours building some report every single week, there's got to be a way to design that in whatever system you're using so that it spits it out for you. Or a lot of recruiters are using AI to help build job descriptions. It doesn't mean that they're just taking the AI and spitting it out into their website, but it means they're not starting from a blank piece of paper. And now maybe they only need to take 15 minutes to customize it and put a little flair on it. The bulk of it is already there. So I think thinking through all the resources that are available to you.
Amen. Shout out to our growth marketing team for building me incredible dashboards, because otherwise I would spend hours and hours and hours pulling information.
For people to be less fearful, you got to take them on that journey to say, how's our business thinking about the future? How might AI impact our business model? How might it impact the kind of products that we serve up or the services we provide? Taking that as a learning experiment, a learning opportunity for people to say, let's invite you into our planning process. We want your input. And as part of that, we'll learn together. There's a lot of humility that needs to go around these topics of AI, because we don't know how it's going to impact our business. We don't know how it's going to impact regulation. We don't know really what kind of artificial kind of general intelligence is going to do. We don't really know the impact of all of this on compute power and the environment. And do we actually have enough energy across corporate America to run all these large language models? There's a lot we don't know. And I think kind of investing in that, in a learning journey around strategy development is probably what a no regrets move as well.
One thing I do think is fun, and this isn't really because we're talking about messaging here, but obviously messaging, once you've got this, kind of leads into copy. A fun use case, because, you know, you might log into LinkedIn or Instagram and you'll see, like, I don't know, there's a trend going on, like, roast my Instagram profile or like roast my LinkedIn profile. I don't know if you've seen that right now, like at the time of, like, we're August 24, right? So there's a lot of people who are like, oh, ChatGPT roast my profile. And it just seems like a fun trend, but actually this is a really brilliant use case. Like asking AI to dial up something you've written, like, all the way. So, like, give me 100% sass. Like, if I was going to write this super sassy, what would it sound like? If I was going to write this, like, super direct, or if I was going to write this in the voice of, like, Jean-Luc Picard, or if I was going to, I don't know. So, like, just to kind of push and test things, it's fun because it can, like, creatively get you start thinking, like, oh, maybe we can, like, push the boundaries of stuff. But this is more of a copy kind of thing. But that's fun. Like, I really enjoy that use case because it kind of gets you out of it. Like, oh, could we be more direct? Like, what if I took this headline and I just, like, we really, like, poked it a little bit more to the audience, you know, and we really, like, called them out. Then that's fun. Like, and it kind of gets you past this writer's block. But yeah, that's, like, I think sometimes I have fun. I think I'd have fun with ChatGPT rather than use it for, like, useful stuff, to be honest.
Leaders should develop principles that their organization are going to use to guide their technology development. They should identify a leader of responsible technology development in the company and put together cross-divisional teams to really grapple with the issues that it brings up. They should develop frameworks for their governing of their technology, how they're going to actually, you know, check in on it every year, what metrics they're going to report, and again, those principles that are going to guide it. And then they really need to bake that framework into their everyday processes and measure their results after they've done that. And that's very quickly sort of 5 stages that we walk companies through in a book that I co-authored called Ethics in the Age of Disruptive Technologies, an Operational Roadmap. And you can download that book for free from the Markkula Center site, because our goal is just to get the resources out to as many people as possible. And if you want a hard copy, you can buy it on Amazon. Companies that we work with kept saying, you know, you guys need to write this all down. We need kind of a how-to manual for doing this. And it draws on research that we've done both at the Markkula Center and then in collaboration with other organizations like the World Economic Forum and the Partnership on Artificial Intelligence to really sort of boil down what are the best practices that we've seen in companies across the globe.